I love to sing it. Jesus is his name. J-E-S-U-S, 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 and Jesus is his name. There is a name I love to sing, and Jesus is his name. E-S-U-S, 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 and Jesus is his name. There is a name I love to sing, and Jesus is his name. S-U-S, 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 and Jesus is his name. There is a name I love to sing, and Jesus is his name. U-S, 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 and Jesus is his name. There is a name I love to sing, and Jesus is his name. And Jesus is his name. There is a name I love to sing, and Jesus is his name. And Jesus is his name. Thank you. They were dead in robes, but have the news to prove that He is Lord. It didn't come to stay, it came to pass. The Lord will move that mountain if you'll ask. The trials that we see today won't last. It didn't come to stay, it came to pass. If I should live by sight, I would be beaten down because I can't see past these walls. Circumstance, no. But faith will be my substance, and my hope is in the Lord. He will turn my sorrow into dance. Oh, He will turn my sorrow into dance. It didn't come to stay, it came to pass. The Lord will move that mountain if you'll ask. The trials that we see today won't last. It didn't come to stay, it came to pass. 'Cause weeping may endure for the night, oh, but I've got my joy tomorrow. It didn't come to stay, it came to pass. The Lord will move that mountain if you'll only ask. The trials that we see today won't last. Oh no, it didn't come to stay, it came to pass. He will be faithful. It didn't come to stay. No, it didn't come to stay. It came to
First chapter, Luke's Gospel. Luke 1, 18 through 25. And Zacharias said unto the angel, Whereby shall I know this? For I'm an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. And the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and not able to speak, until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. And the people waited for Zacharias, and marveled that he tarried so long in the temple. And when he came out, he could not speak unto them, and they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned unto them, and remained speechless. And it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. And after those days his wife Elizabeth conceived, and hid herself 5 months, saying, Thus hath the Lord dealt with me in the days wherein he looked on me, to take away my reproach among men. Let us pray. Lord, again, we just thank you for this time together, for, Lord, your house and your people, and most especially, Lord, we're thankful for your word this morning, and pray, Lord, that as it goes out, it will accomplish what you sent it to do today. Realizing, Lord, that it's a word that's all-powerful and can do all things. And, Lord, we know that though we all stand in need today, You have our answers and you have our guidance, and we look to you this morning. We praise you and bless you in the name of Jesus. Amen. We continue this morning with the story of Elizabeth and Zacharias. Last Sunday we looked at the beginning of the story. Today we'll try to finish that up. Last week we looked at verses 5 through 17, and just quickly reviewing and going back real quickly. Remember, Zacharias is a priest. He's in the order of Abijah. He's married to Elizabeth, who's the daughter of a priest. He's doing his week of the year. He has a 2-week period that he has to do every year as part of his duties as a priest. He's in that right now, doing that, but he's also doing his once-in-a-lifetime duty that you are drawn out by lot, and some folks never get to do it, and he is, again, probably between his 70s and 80s, and his name has finally been drawn out to be the priest who goes in during that time and burns incense at the altar of incense. So not only is he doing his weekly of his 2 weeks duty that he does every year, but now he's getting to do his once-in-a-lifetime duty of walking in to the holy place and going back to the back and putting burning coals on the altar of incense and laying incense on top of those as part of his duty. We know that, again, from last week, that altar in that place is right next to the veil, which separates the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest goes in once a year, and no one else can go in unless they are killed and die for walking into where the presence of God throughout the Old Testament, all of the Mosaic Law things that are happening, that's where the presence of God is. So he's in there, an angel appears to him, tells him that his prayers have been answered, specifically the prayer that his wife would bear him a son. Not just any son, but that he'll be great. He'll turn the people from their sin. He'll be filled with the Holy Ghost, and that he will be the forerunner of Christ. And that's where we left off, was with that angel telling Zacharias that. Just how special his son was going to be, and that his son he would be named John, and that's what all he would do. Now, it's a great miracle of God. Again, we feel like it's safe to say that both Elizabeth and Zacharias are in their 70s or 80s. They've never had a child. She's been barren. They're right in the sight of the eyes of God, as we mentioned last week, but not in the eyes of man, because being barren in the eyes of man was a curse. Somewhere along the way they must have done something wrong to God in the eyes of man, and that's why her womb has been shut up and they have not been able to have a child. And so here we come in, well, this is a miracle that people of this age would have a child. But we know God is a God of miracles. When you start looking at stuff like creating everything in 6 days, destroying it all with a flood, when you talk about what he's going to do in Revelation, we know he's a God of miracles. And he's done this miracle before with Abraham and Sarah, of age, past the time of having children, and then being able to have a family, start a family that would become Israel. So not too hard for God to do this. We mentioned this again last time too. God hasn't spoken through a prophet, through his word. It's been silent to Israel for 400 years. There hasn't been an appearance of an angel in 500 years, and there hasn't been a notable, true supernatural miracle of God in 800 years. So it's been a long time. And Zacharias knows this. He's a priest. He's been a priest all his life. He understands Old Testament scripture. He knows it backwards and forwards. He knows the time frame, how all these things have happened. And he knows that if this were to happen, it would be a miracle. And so this angel has come to him. The silence of heaven, you might say, has been broken. And this angel comes to him. But verse 19 tells us he's not just any angel, but he is Gabriel. Now, there's only 2 angels that are given names in the Bible, Gabriel and Michael. Every other angel is just called an angel. And angels have lots of jobs. You know, there are angels. We go this time of year, we go listen, there's angels among us. There's angels right here with us right now. And where you can get into a deep discussion about angels and what all they do and what we have no idea that they do. And when you start thinking about duties of angels, and we think about our guardian angels, we think about angels of protection, well, the Bible here tells us what Gabriel's job was. He said, I'm Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God. So I'm not usually out here amongst all you guys. I'm not one of these that's been sitting down to be a protector of you and do this. I'm usually in the presence of God. That's why I'm Gabriel. That's why I got a name. I'm a little different than most angels. So, hey, Zacharias, even though you scoff at this, you don't understand it, and I'm going to make you sure you know. You're standing right next to the veil and you ain't dead, and I am a specific angel that's come down from the presence of God to tell you this. So I don't know why you scoff at it or why you don't believe right now, but let me just fill you in. This ain't just any angel. This ain't just any miracle that's about to take place. And Luke tells us that, exactly who it is, that it's Gabriel. It's the same Gabriel he's mentioned in the Old Testament. He appeared to Daniel to help Daniel interpret visions and dreams. He's the same Gabriel that, Lord willing, next Sunday we'll get to, verse 26. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto the city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. Same Gabriel. Pretty important angel. Had some pretty important tasks.
Amen.
And so he's appeared now to Zacharias to tell him that his wife is going to bear him a son. But that's verse 19. I won't get too far ahead of myself. If you look at verse 18, you see why there's been some doubt and why he has to tell him who he is. Zacharias said unto this angel, "Whereby shall I know this? For I'm an old man, and my wife well stricken in years." In our language, he said, "I'm an old man, I'm married to an old lady. I don't know what you think we're fixing to do by having a child. This is just impossible." And in man's eyes, it is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. And so he says that, and then he had also asked that question, "Wherefore shall I know this?" Or, "How can I be sure of this?" Because there's no way this can happen. And that's when the angel identifies himself as Gabriel and affirms that God himself has sent him with this, again, good news. End of verse 19 said, "These glad tidings." You were here last Sunday night. We talked about that. King James translates each time glad tidings. Every other translation will say good news. The gospel is about to begin. We have the precursor, the forerunner to the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ the Savior being born. Then we get to verse 20 and something quirky happens. "And behold, thou shalt be dumb and not able to speak until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season." You're going to be dumb. Again, that's a word we throw around a lot sometimes we shouldn't use. But in this instance, it's something that we've used before. It's not politically correct to say it this way anymore. But all your life, if you ever heard somebody said they were deaf and dumb, you knew exactly what it meant. They were deaf, they couldn't hear, they were dumb, they couldn't speak. A lot of times those went hand in hand, because if they hadn't been deaf since an infant, they had never heard sound, didn't understand sound, therefore they couldn't talk and formulate words because they had never heard anything in their lives. If you have somebody that's had a hearing loss later in life, then they can still talk and speak, they just can't hear you. If you have somebody that maybe has a hearing loss as a small child, they can still utter things out, say things, may even talk with kind of a lisp or a different enunciation than we use, because that's how they remembered it from when they heard it. But someone who has had hearing loss their entire life, most of the time they can't speak because they've never had understood that, heard it, know it. Again, politically incorrect, but when I was growing up, when you was growing up, that's what people said, deaf and dumb. Well, as King James translates this, he is dumb, or your translation may say he's silent, and then to confirm that says, "and not able to speak." So Gabriel says, because you have not believed, because of your unbelief, when you get out of here, you're not going to be able to talk. You're not going to be able to say a word. You're not going to be able to make a sound. You're going to be completely silent. All because you didn't believe. I like the way that the text says it. It says, "Because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season." I like that. Which shall be fulfilled in their season. God is a sovereign God, even in unbelief. You are my servant. You are a priest. I'm going to work through you and your wife, but you don't believe, and so I'm going to punish you. I'm going to give you judgment. You can't speak, but that's not going to forward what my role is, what I'm going to do. You're still going to have that son. His name's still going to be John. He's still going to be the forerunner of Christ. You just ain't going to get the full blessing out of it because, amen, you didn't believe. So what's the big deal? Well, hey, I believe if I came out and I was 80 years old and I just got to do my lifelong, I always wanted him to pull my name out, let me go in there and burn the incense. While I'm in there burning the incense, I find out me and my 80-year-old wife's going to have a child for the first time. I believe when I came out, I'd be wanting to tell folks. But he ain't going to be able to tell nobody. He's not going to be able to speak a word. All the way up until that child is born, he won't be able to utter a sound. So it is a big deal. It is a judgment. Some of y'all couldn't go 30 seconds without. Yeah, I better stop there. I didn't look over there. But from now till that child is born, not be able to utter a word. All because he didn't believe what God was trying to tell him and let him understand and know. You know, you say that's bad. He can't talk all the way up to that child's born just because he didn't believe. You know, hell is full of folks who are in hell because they just wouldn't believe. So I believe if you could ask him right now, they'd have traded you a life of not being able to speak for an eternity in heaven instead of eternity in hell. Verse 21 tells us that the people were waiting on Zacharias and marveled that he tarried so long in the temple. Again, remember where he's at. When the high priest would go in once a year behind the veil, remember we talked about this recently several times, they'd tie a rope around his waist, put bells on his robe so they could hear it. As long as they can hear them bells, he's good. But if them bells quit ringing, they're pulling that rope and getting him out of there. I mean, he messed up and he's dead. He's in a very dangerous, precarious situation being back there right by the veil. They expect him to go in and come out. It's supposed to be get in there and get out. Because the longer you stay in there, the more chance you got of messing up. I told y'all last week, it'd been my luck. I'd have got back there, I'd have got so nervous, I'd have fumbled around, I'd have tripped, I'd have fell in the veil, I'd have been done. I'd have gone. My once in a lifetime would have been my lifetime thing. I'd have probably messed it up. And so, custom was, you went in there, put those coals on, put that incense on, it started smoking, and you got out as fast as you could. I've used this example before. Some of y'all have reminded me of it over the years because I told about it a long time ago, but I'll tell it back again today. When I was young and me and Mother lived in Central Park, Inslee, Midfield, kind of where they all kind of joined together. I had to take the garbage out at night, and the dumpster's on the corner, and I was scared of going out at night. And so as I'd ease out that front door, we lived in an apartment complex that was separate buildings, 4 apartments to a building. I'd come out and I'd look at that dumpster like it's 6 miles away in the dark. And I'd just sprint my little old fat rear end as fast as I could run. I'd get within throwing distance of that dumpster and I'd heave that garbage towards it and just hope it rung it. And I could slam the brakes on, turn around and head back to that apartment as fast as you. Never moved as fast as I did when I was toting garbage when I was little. But I was scared to death of being out there in the dark. That's exactly what those priests were supposed to do. Get in there, get out. Don't stay. Don't even look at that veil. You better not even think about what you're next to. You better get that incense on there, and you better get out. Luke tells us here that people are marveling because he's taking so long in there. And they didn't put a rope on him, and they didn't put bells on his rope because he wasn't going behind the veil. But no doubt in their minds, they're thinking, he has messed up. That poor old man has gotten in there, gotten confused, went behind the veil, he's dead. How are we ever going to get him? What in the world is going on? The incense is burning, they can see the smoke, but he still ain't came out. Well, something is going wrong. Something happened back there with Zacharias. So they marveled that he tarried so long. And again, normal was you go in there and you get out. Also normal, according to the system of the law and the things that took place, when that priest would come out from burning the incense, he would give, not a speech, but he'd give a benediction. He'd give a blessing out to the people. It's found in Numbers. It just says this: the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And everybody would be fine. Everybody would be happy. We're good to go, and everybody will leave. So they're all waiting on him to come out. And when he comes out, he's supposed to come out quick. And when he comes out, he's supposed to give them this benediction. Well, we already know that benediction ain't going to take place because he can't talk. So, verse 22, he comes out. When he came out, he could not speak unto them. And they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple. For he beckoned unto them and remained speechless. Well, he comes out. He can't give the benediction. He can't speak to them. They know something's wrong, first of all, because he's not speaking. Second of all, it doesn't really say, but I believe his countenance has changed. I believe when you stand in the presence of Gabriel and you come out to people, it's going to show on your face. His countenance has changed. But then I like how Luke says it, and King James translates this, that he beckoned unto them and remained speaking. He beckoned unto them. Again, if you've got another translation, it's probably not translated as beckoned, but it's translated as giving signs. He's trying to speak with his hands. There's no formal sign language that has been brought about and developed at this time. So he's just trying to tell them with his hands. I can't imagine what he's trying to do. I don't know what he's saying. I know they're all waiting on him to speak, asking him why he's not talking, and he starts trying to explain. I have no idea. How do you say, hey, I'm old, but an angel told me I'm about to have a baby? I don't know how you do that. I don't know what kind of signs he's making or what he's doing, but that's what it means when it says there, look, that he beckons unto them and still remains speechless. He kept making signs to them, and yet is speechless. He's going to remain speechless all the way up until that child is born. I don't want to get too far ahead, but skip down in chapter 1 down to verse 57, and I just want to look at it real quick. We won't go into depth, but I'm just going to show you where he gets his speech back. Verse 57 says, now Elizabeth's full time came that she should be delivered. So 9 months are up now. And she brought forth a son. And her neighbors and her cousins heard how the Lord had showed great mercy upon her, and they rejoiced with her. And it came to pass that on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias, after the name of his father. And his mother answered and said, not so, but he shall be called John. They said unto her, there's none of thy kindred that's called by this name. And they made signs to his father how he would have him called. And he asked for a writing table and wrote, saying, his name is John. And they marveled. And his mouth was opened immediately, and his tongue loosed. And he spake and praised God. So he's going to get it back, but not till that baby's born and until they name him John. A couple interesting things here that you notice and maybe you just wonder about. When they come and talk to Elizabeth and say, we're going to name him Zacharias, because that's the custom. Name him after his father. He's in the priestly family. Name him Zacharias. No, we're going to name him John. Well, how did she get that? At some point in time, Zacharias has written on a table. Is the Lord speaking to us? Okay. I ain't having no child, Lord. I don't care what you tell me. I don't want that news. Somewhere, Zacharias has explained to Elizabeth and told her, we're going to name him John. That's what his name's going to be. He's going to be John. Now, did he do it with a table? Did he figure out some way to spell it out? I don't know how he did it, but she's found out. Because remember, the angel Gabriel appeared to Zacharias and told him. And then sometime between then and the baby being born, Zacharias has explained to her, we're going to name him John. And so she says, we're going to name him John. But then there's something interesting too. It says that when she tells that, the family says, we ain't never heard that name before. There ain't nobody in the family named that. And then notice what it says that they go over to Zacharias and do. they make signs to him. Was he deaf too? It doesn't say, it just says he's dumb, can't speak a word. But I'm wondering, if he could have heard, they'd have just went over and said, hey, tell us, show us, give us a sign, write it down. Why is he? No, they had to make signs to him. Again, I ain't trying to add, I'm just wondering, does that mean that part of his judgment was he couldn't hear too? I don't know, maybe so. If they make signs to him, when he understands what they're asking, he asks for a writing table, and he says, his name is John. And then suddenly his mouth is open, his tongue is loosed, and for the first time in over 9 months, he starts talking. And immediately begins to praise God for what God has done in their lives. Because again, he knows now and understands just how special this son is going to be. So we know that's coming, and we know he stays silent all that time. Back to the text. Verse 23 says, and it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. So he's done his incense burning, his once in a lifetime. He finishes up his week of priestly duties at that time for the year. He goes back home. I mean, that's just what it is. He goes back home. He's still a priest. He still has priestly duties. He still has things as far as interpreting the word, being a priest. But as far as what he does in the temple, that's done. So he goes back home. And then we get a verse 24 that you just kind of might skip over, but let's don't skip over it. And after those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived and hid herself 5 months, saying, thus hath the Lord dealt with me in the days wherein he looked on me, to take away my reproach among men. After these days, after this, after he has finished his ministration and come home, then Elizabeth conceives. What's the distinction in that? Well, so that we understand that Gabriel came and gave them this promise that it was going to happen. It hadn't happened yet, but it was going to happen. So it happens after he gets home. And it didn't happen while he was gone. She didn't decide, well, I'm tired of not ever. It must be his problem. It must be on Zechariah. I'm going to find me another man and see if I can't have a baby before it's too late. That ain't how it happened. It happened after he came home. She conceived. And then she hid herself 5 months. Why'd she hide herself 5 months? Well, again, she's a lot like Zacharias. Once she realized she has conceived and is going to have a child, she probably wants to tell everybody. But think now, everybody in her family, all her friends, everybody in town, everybody she knows thinks she's cursed. Her womb's shut up. She's not going to have a child. And now, in her 80s, if she comes around and starts saying, I'm pregnant, I'm fixing to have a baby, they're going to think she's lost her mind. You ain't had one your whole life. You're not having one now. You're way past time to have one. You are, again, as the translation, you're stricken in years. You're not going to have a child. You have lost your mind. We need to do something with Elizabeth, bless her heart. So she hides herself. She hides herself. 5 months. What happens after 5 months? After 5 months, she ain't just got to say it. She'll be showing. Now again, I don't know. We ain't having one, ain't going to have one. I don't understand. I don't know about all the, what do you call the clothes? What's it called? Maternity. There you go. I don't know about the style of maternity. I know nowadays, you can tell when they're pregnant. Back in, big loose robes. It took a while to start showing, I guess, when they was pregnant. So she waited. She hid herself. Then when she came out and said, I'm having a baby, and they said, there it is. Told y'all, having a baby. Also, like this. She said, thus hath the Lord dealt with me in the days wherein he looked on me, to take away my reproach among men. Again, people have looked at her as cursed almost her whole life. Since she was a teenager and able to have a child, and they were probably married as teenagers. All that time, she's always been thought of. That's that reproach she's talking about. But I find it interesting, too, that she proclaims her pregnancy and she thanks the Lord for taking away her reproach. I'm not sure with Zacharias being unable to speak, I know somehow he's been able to tell her, hey, we're going to call him John. But I don't think maybe that he's been able to explain all of what John's going to... I'm not sure she knows what she's got yet. I know she knows it's a miracle. I know she knows God has intervened. But by the writing of Luke here, it's almost as if she says, well, God has blessed me to take away my curse and my reproach so people will quit looking at me this way. Zacharias has not been able to really talk to her, so I don't think he's been able to explain to her all the things the angel told him about what that great son was going to be. The reason I say that is I think if he had, then she would have been proclaiming, thanking God for that great son and what he's going to be. But right now, she's just thankful she's having a baby. She's just thankful that for the first time in her long life, she's going to give birth to a son. John's got lots of explaining to do when he finally gets his tongue loosed and his mouth open. By the way, don't you think he had some explaining to do when he got home from the temple and couldn't talk?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Why aren't you talking? And he starts trying to make signs. Have you lost your mind? What are you hiding? What have you been up to? Where'd you go besides the temple? Bad been bad around me. Where you been besides the temple? But boy, he's got a lot to tell her. It won't be long till he gets to tell her. Again, 400 years since the Lord spoke, 500 years since the appearance of an angel, 800 years since the last notable, true, supernatural miracle which happened in the fiery furnace in the time of Daniel. That's the last recorded true supernatural miracle. And now we're going to get a miracle that's going to introduce us, move us, start us into about a 33-year period with more miracles than this world has ever seen. And it's going to start with the birth from the conception of, as he said, I'm an old man and she's an old lady. I'm amazed at how God works, what God can do, and the fact that even in a situation like this, when it seems like there might not be much cooperation, he still moves and works, and his plans still always come to fruition because he's a sovereign God. Amen. Lord willing, next week we'll get the announcement to Mary, who's also going to have a son, who also is going to have the name prepared in advance. And his name will be Jesus. Let's stand while Denise comes with a verse of invitation.
Happy
Church, Charles comes to us this morning. Y'all know Charles and I have been coming a lot for a little while now, and they have felt like the Lord moved them to come and join and be a part of our church.
Amen.
Charles is coming, presenting himself as a candidate for membership upon the transfer of a letter from Valleydale Baptist Church. And it's Valleydale Baptist, but it's not Valleydale Baptist anymore, so we hope they still have letters. If not, we'll do what we've been having to do. We'll send for Valleydale for a letter. Donna comes, and technically, she's just coming home because she was a member here as a youngster and moved off and actually didn't go to another Baptist church but went to a different denomination. So her letter's never been asked for. So technically, her letter is still here and she's still a member. If you want to do technical terms, I guess we just said she's an inactive member. But she wants to come back and be active now. So technically, we're not asking for anything but for you to reaffirm the fact that she's a member here and welcome her back to be a part of the family where she started, where she belongs. So I guess technically what I'm asking for is first on Charles and his membership. What do you want to do?
That's it.
And second, all in favor, let me know by lifted hand. Any opposing? We don't have to do nothing. We welcome her home. We want you to come by, hug her neck, and let her know you love her and glad she's back where she's supposed to be. Is that good enough for you? Good enough for you? Amen. So, amen. That's good. We're glad to have them come and be a part of our church. And again, make no mistake now, the devil ain't happy about nothing that's going on. So, watch out. He'll be hitting after you, trying to slow down and stop what's going on down here at Shannon First Baptist. We ain't going to let him stop us. Amen. Don't forget, again, Brad will be preaching for us tonight. So make your plans to be with us. Play practice today at 4. Again, for those of you who didn't know, done went in the hospital, come back out, back with us this morning. Scott, would you dismiss us?
Dear God, we thank you for your Savior, Lord. I thank you for another chance to come out to your house and worship you, Lord. It's such a privilege and a blessing that you allow us to do it, Lord. And such you do with all the prayer requests made here today, Lord. As you know the needs of each and every one of them. Just thank you for the message that we heard this morning, Lord. Thank you for this time. We want to be to this church, Lord, just make us part of the family, dear Lord. Just as you bless them as they come this way, and we all start this journey together, dear Lord. Just as you be with us and go our separate ways, and bring us back here tonight. All this in our blessed name. Amen.